Strangely enough, the recent event that happened up in Buffalo reminded me of one of my favorite novels, one of my favorite works of fiction. If you've ever read Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, you will know that the antagonist in that book is this sort of supernatural, demonic entity by the name of Judge Holden. The judge is about 7 foot tall. He's immensely strong, extremely intelligent. He is a polyglot. He can speak numerous languages. English, of course, Spanish, Dutch, German, and if I can remember correctly, even Russian. He's also able to speak the native tribes, the Indians who inhabited that part of the American Southwest. He could speak their languages. It's also strongly implied, too, that he was a pedophile. Whenever the judge was around with his gang of scalp hunters, children oftentimes would go missing. It's a very interesting book, I think it's well worth, it is of course a work of fiction, but I absolutely believe it is well worth reading for our guys. It's got some primordial truths. And, although it's probably McCarthy's most popular novel, but if you read just the jacket of the book, or the back of it, that gives the little summary, it makes it sound like, this typical bleeding heart liberal nonsense about the kid who is the protagonist being caught in this world where the native tribes are being extinguished. It's kind of hilarious, these leftist professors or these people who write these book reviews, writing this. But if you actually take the time to read the novel, it is quite the opposite, to put it bluntly. There is a very important racial aspect to it. In fact, there is even one part in the book where there is a Prussian Jew character who is behaving in a, the you-know-who-ish fashion. It's kind of like what was McCarthy trying to tell us here. Like I said, I would highly recommend people to read it. But Judge Holden, what I think he is this sort of allegory for brutality and violence. You look at some of his character traits. He's extremely strong. He catalogs a lot of things and writes them down in this book. He gathers artifacts. He knows a lot about geology, history, all these things. And one observation I made about him being a polyglot, about him being able to speak all these wild assortment of languages, is that him being an allegory for violence means, violence is its own language. He can speak all these languages. Violence, on the other hand, is its own language. It transcends language. In fact, nature is violence and conflict and struggle. Of course, nature also has, its kind aspect as well, Another thing, too, is, another aspect of the judge is that the character, he never ages. The kid runs into him decades later, and he looks exactly the same. I think this means that violence is timeless, and it will always be there. It's interesting how this event got me to thinking about this book. A second ago, how I said violence transcends language. Let me show you something right quick. What we have here is a rat snake eating a pigeon that I caught on camera while fishing last year. This is what I mean when I say that violence transcends language. Violence is a language unto itself. You don't have to understand any language at all, but you can understand violence. Also, to prove my point that nature itself
is built upon violence.
You know, no matter what the powers that be, the media, all these other groups say, you know, they always talk about creating an environment or a world without hate, without racism, without violence. And you know, it's kind of funny, and it's extremely rich coming from these people. You know, just in that video clip there, nature itself is violence. Power, true power, really it's only built on violence or the threat of violence. You know, there's a lot of people here in the dissident right. You know, I'm not really interested. You know, I've not looked into it too much about the event that happened over the weekend. I'm more interested in seeing the response from people here in the dissident right. And it seems most people are saying, you know, that this is a false flag. Myself, I don't really know. Don't really care, you know. Hate to say it. I know that sounds callous, but I don't really care. You know, all of that is sort of secondary to me. Could have been a false flag. Maybe it's what it was at face value. I don't know. And I'm not going to waste time looking into it. You know, an interesting parallel I will say is if you have never heard of the Gang of Novellas, you know, I've seen in different chats people saying, you know, they were intrigued, I guess you could say, or just couldn't believe, you know, a guy would go shoot up a supermarket. This isn't new by any means. I mean, if you look up the Brabant or Brabant killers, the Gang of Novellas, you know, they operated in Belgium and the Netherlands and France during the 80s. It was a group of 3 guys who racked up a body count of, I believe it was 28 people over about 2 years. They would hit supermarkets. There was 3 guys, the giant, the shooter, and the driver. They never found these people. And there's a lot of evidence of connections that these people had with the Belgian government. They used weaponry that only the gendarmerie had access to. And, I mean, it was, you know, just wanton violence. They would only, I think they only stole like a few $1,000s. I think one robbery they racked up $25,000, but most of the time they would only steal champagne, wine, coffee, or you know, just, or tea. You know, just really strange, you know. But as far as, you know, the event it being a false flag, I don't know. I don't really care, but what it's made me, what I'm interested in is seeing the responses of people on our side, you could say. And of course, there's been the people that disavow violence. I've said before, I will never disavow violence. I ain't encouraging anyone. I ain't encouraging anyone to do anything. What I encourage people to do is to get away from the system. Try to free yourself from this system. I'm not encouraging anyone. Also, but what I will encourage is for people to expect violence and to be ready for it. Because it's coming. You see, here in the dissident right, myself, like I said, encourage breaking away from the system. But then there's a lot of people who want to engage the system. You know, they want to fight for political power and all that shit. If you want to do that, go ahead, you know. But I mean, really, a long time ago, I came to the realization that all roads are going to lead to violence. You know, you think you can engage. I heard a prominent talking head saying something, you know, that we should fight for political power. Do you think we're going to get white civil rights and that we are going... You think the fucking system is going to give us that? You're fucking retarded. They're not going to give it to us. We aren't blacks marching back during the 60s. The only reason they got their civil rights is because it's what the powers that be wanted. We're not going to be given that same opportunity. All roads lead to violence. And I mean, even breaking away from the system. Violence is looming. I mean, you've seen what they did to Randy Weaver, rest in peace. You've seen what they did at Waco. If the system wants you, it will get you. I spoke about this more at length in this video here. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I think it needs to be said. You know, all roads lead to it. Some roads just lead to it sooner than others. I think we should be ready. But going back to disavowing violence, why is it that our side, whether it's, the mainstream right-wing conservatives, or even people, social media influencers on our side. I heard a prominent influencer, shortly after the event happened, he made a video talking about, how this all was a false flag. Yet at the end of it, he says, we renounce violence. He went on this spiel about that shit. Why did he say this? If he's so sure it's a false flag, why are you apologizing? Why are you saying, we renounce violence? I think there's just a lot of wannabe politicians or just people that want to protect, their bank accounts. They don't want their assets frozen. Whatever. I don't fucking know. I think it's, cowardice, to be honest. The reasons that I will never disavow violence, there's two of them. I have my justifications. The first justification, if it's organic violence against the system, I'll never disavow it. Never. Because if you think about it, this system, our government, our Western governments, and the hidden hand who controls things behind the scenes, it is the most violent monstrosity, the most violent abomination this world has ever seen. Look at Dresden. Look at all the wars over the decades. Think of the Dutroux affair that happened in Belgium and the Netherlands. The Finders cases. This system kills people by the truckload, by the busload. It encourages children to lop their genitalia off. So I'll never disavow violence against the system. Never. And the second reason that I'll never disavow violence is because have you ever once heard our enemies disavow violence that their side commits? During the Summer of Love, back in 2020, when all the blacks were rioting, did you ever once hear their politicians, to my mind immediately comes that revolting hag Maxine Waters, telling, they encourage it. They fucking encourage this shit. They encourage, they justify, or they downright ignore the violence. You see, they never disavow violence. Yet our side, during January the 6th, all the fallout after it, I can distinctly remember hearing that cuck Ted Cruz saying, what a horrible attack on democracy it was. And this guy would be considered, right-wing conservative or whatever. Why is it that our side will consistently disavow violence? I'll never do it. You're trying to play by their rules. You're trying to Distance yourself. Like I said, I'm not encouraging violence. What I encourage is breaking away from the system, trying to become as self-reliant as you can. But I also advocate for being ready, even expecting, because it's better to be prepared than to be caught off guard. You know, violence is something we'll never get away from. And it's something that our people excel at. Although, you know, here in modernity, you know, at one time our people was a race of warriors. Although modernity, I think, has done a number to a degree. So yeah, it just really irritates me whenever I hear people talking about, you know, oh, we disavow all forms of political violence, you know. Shut the fuck up and quit trying to pander to your enemies. You're letting your enemies dictate everything. And you know, yeah, I'm aware when I mention, you know, that the left wing, you know, the media, the powers that be, you know, all that bullshit, you know, the heads of the Hydra. Whenever, you know, I hear the argument, yeah, you know, they control everything, that's why they're allowed to get away with that violence. So, yeah, I fucking know shit. I fucking know that already. But, you know, I think our side, it would serve us well to understand these things and to quit disavowing. Because it doesn't matter. Our enemies hate us. And why are we trying to change their mind? Is this some sort of plea? Some sort of, I can't, the word's leaving me right now. Some sort of way to get, you know, to appeal to the masses? You know, I don't know. But anyways, you know, these are my thoughts. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.